As we have said, Dom Marmion has left a very large accumulation of notes, written in his own hand for conferences. Sometimes the whole conference has been summarily sketched out, but more frequently these notes are fragmentary, without order, incomplete, jotted down in pen or pencil, or consisting merely of a few lines scribbled on the leaf of a notebook. Nevertheless, they are elevated in matter and rich in doctrine. They are the principal and the most authentic element of our documentation. We have relied especially on the notes of the Louvain period, 1899 to 1909, which give evidence of an ever-increasing mastery of his subject. From 1909, the documentation is less extensive. This is due to the fact that from this date, Dom Marmion, having been elected abbot of Meridsu, was more and more occupied with the duties of his office. Moreover, at this time, he was in the full maturity of his talent and had a complete command of his doctrine. Being endowed with a remarkable memory, he lived on the riches of his store. For this last period, we have another source to rely on: the notes taken by his attentive audiences during his spiritual conferences. Especially noteworthy among these are the complete texts of two retreats, one given in 1919 to the religious who had come back from the war, and the one given to the seminarists of Tournai, both of which manifest a great elevation of thought and a rich experience. From this variety of documents, of different dates and of varying values, in which inevitably there is much repetition, it was necessary to construct by careful and judicious selection a composite whole at once coherent and complete. The plan given by Dom Marmion in his letter of 25th September 1918 is so summary that it can be only regarded as a very general idea of the book, although the place it gives to the sacrifice of the Mass is significant of his line of thought. The richness of the documentation and our anxiety to omit nothing of such treasures has led us to divide up the whole doctrine in a simple logical framework, well adapted to the amplitude of the priestly life. Any other plan would have prevented us from grouping in a single synthesis all the numerous and precious elements which Dom Marmion has left us. He would himself, without doubt, have approved of this course, which recalls the plans of Christ, the life of the soul, and Christ, the ideal of the monk, which have been approved by him. The constant aim of our common effort has been, and we have always had it in mind, to give the substance of the Marmion doctrine in all its purity and entirety, while preserving the essential unity and variety of his approach. Let us try to identify what is characteristic in the doctrine of Dom Marmion. In his thought, which is the echo of the thought of St. Paul, the priestly life, like the Christian life itself, must be envisaged as dominated by Christ and in constant dependence on his merits, his grace, and his activity. It is in revealing perspective that the dignity of the priesthood and the work of his sanctification must be understood. The priest holds his supernatural powers in virtue of a priesthood which is far above him, the priesthood of the incarnate Word. And he only exercises these powers in complete subordination to the supreme pontiff. It follows that the virtues proper to the priest shall be a reproduction of those of his divine model. They will be a reflection among men of the virtues of Jesus Christ. In all his actions, in the sacred acts of worship, in the administration of the sacraments, in his apostolic zeal, in his private devotions, and in his daily occupations, the priest must always regard himself as the minister of the Savior, alter Christus. Accordingly, for him, even more than for the simple Christian, sanctification can only be conceived as the reflection of Christ. For him, Christ will be everything, the Alpha and the Omega. As regards the work itself, it has been carried out, it need hardly be said, with the greatest respect for the depth and preciousness of the thought of the venerable abbot, manifesting at once the learning of the doctor of theology and the skill of the director of conscience. We were at all times careful to preserve his direct style, his clear, simple form, with that personal, informal turn of phrase, and even his favorite expressions. Those who have already been in touch with the teaching of Dom Marmion will meet here subjects which have been treated already in his earlier works. Christ, model and source of all sanctity, faith, charity, the Mass, prayer. Should we, in this volume, have passed over these subjects, merely giving reference to earlier writings? Such a course would not only have proved a distraction for the reader, but would have involved a mutilation of the teachings of the Master. In fact, the sanctification of the priest cannot be accomplished apart from Christ and his grace, apart from the virtues, especially the Christian virtues of faith, humility, and zeal, apart from the Eucharistic offering, and apart from prayer. It is for this reason that we decided to deal with these subjects once more, but this time from a point of view peculiarly adapted to the clergy, embracing on the one hand the indispensable review of the fundamental ideas, while avoiding on the other hand their fuller but more general development, which is to be found in the earlier writings. This solution, safeguarding as it did the full plenitude of Dom Marmion's teaching and the homogeneity of the book, seemed the obvious one. We are confident that it will meet the approval of our readers.